Number needed.
Yes.
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 Call the meeting to order at 4:00.
Can everyone hear us on WebEx?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay. Deborah Carter,
Here.
Kim Sella, here. James Cotter,
Here.
Ed James,
Here.
Risha Rollins, Ben Samuels,
Here.
Jordan Sanders, here. James Neely,
Here.
Patrick McCully.
Present.
We do have a quorum. Okay. All others in attendance, will you state your name and affiliation to this commission? Okay, anybody from the council office?
I am standing in for Maggie Bergman. My name's Meredith Rogers.
Okay, anyone else, county police?
I'm Lieutenant Police. I'm Sergeant Terrence Floyd, filling in for Captain Killer.
Okay. Public Works Transportation?
Adam Spector, St. Louis County Department of Transportation and Public Works.
Okay, I think that's it. Okay, this time I'm going to have a motion to adopt the minutes from the April 13th meeting.
So moved.
Second.
Any questions, comments? All those in favor, say by aye.
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 Ayes have it. Okay. At this time, we're going to make an amendment to the agenda. County Council or the St. Louis County will give their reports as stated in the agenda. But when we come to bi-state, we're going to really dedicate the meeting to the presentation of the budget. Okay, no opposition to that. We will go into the St. Louis County. Does the county council have any reports at this time?
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay.
Not that I was told about when I was told I was going to be here, so.
Done as stated. Department of Public Works.
So we had our public meeting for the Riverview Great Streets project a couple weeks ago, and I was fairly well attended. So the consultant team is moving forward with coming up with some various draft plans and such. We're starting to kind of vet through that. And that study is supposed to wrap up sometime in late June, is when we'll have final recommendations and such. The Department of Planning has their small area study for Spanish Lake coming on. They had their steering committee last week to kick off, and they'll be having a public meeting on the 21st next week at the Celebrity Banquet Center on Bell Fountain Road from 4 to 7. And I brought one flyer, which I didn't bring enough to share, so I'll have to send that out to you guys later this week.
Okay, thank you. The next meeting, could you just give us a general overview of all the projects, road projects in St. Louis County? Just a slight overview, doesn't have to be in detail. Because the last couple of meetings, we've been just zoning in on the Spanish Lake in North County, but what about the others?
Yeah, we've got a bunch of projects. They're listed on our website, so I probably too many for me to list here. If I had it in front of me and I brought that list, I can send that around with links. But generally, we've been scaling our program back a little bit to focus more on minimal ADA stuff, repaving, simple type projects just for budgetary reasons. With all our projects, we're including curb ramps for ADA compliance, repaving, and then where we have Metro bus stops on a route that we're doing a project, we'll go ahead and if we can fit it within the right of way that we have available, we're putting in the ADA compliant bus pads, bus stop pads, and that's standard for all of our projects. A lot of our work is focused on trying to stretch our dollars as far as we can, obviously. So, we kind of are aligning our projects based on what the scoring is going, criteria is going to be for federal funds. so we can get matching funds and, do as many projects as we can. So those projects are all kind of bundled together. With the additional money we got from adjusting that sales tax split, the 73 sales tax split to the 50/50, that's been allowing us to get to a backlog of projects that just don't compete well for federal funds. So some of our roadways that just don't compete because they don't support bus lines, or they have lighter traffic volumes, or, they don't have crash history, that the criteria that typically score better. We're getting a chance to address a number of those projects, as well as some subdivision work that we've been kind of putting off for the last 5 years. So, we're stretching our dollars as best we can, and, that's what we're doing with the extra money that we have. And as I said, I'll follow up with a little more of a list of projects and links to the website where we have that information.
Appreciate that. Thank you. St. Louis County Police.
So you can see me.
I'll share my screen.
Okay, so, with just the information as far as our crime statistics go, for the last 2 weeks on the Metro Link, we did have 2 simple assaults. One was created disturbance. She pulled a bottle opener on a security officer and got resolved with no further issues. Another one was individual was creating disturbance and spit on a bunch of people that were waiting on the bus. That also got resolved, but that was it as far as crimes against persons. Zero crimes against property for the last 2 weeks. Crimes against society, we did locate 1 firearm, and the person also was in possession of narcotics. That's really it for the last 2 weeks. The last 2 cases to kind of give you some information as far as how our calls were directed, where we responded, and what we responded to. If you also see anything you should have questions about, just let me know and I'll answer them to the best of my ability.
Where was the firearm comprehended? Was it a station or on the system?
Well, it was on the platform.
Which platform?
I believe it was that Kansas.
Thanks.
We cleared up last month about Plymouth. Where's Performance Drive? Is that on Umsel Station?
What was that?
Performance Drive, is that Umsel
Yes.
Station North?
Yes. Yes, sir.
Umsel North,
Yeah.
okay. Yeah, I come up with these different names, so like we added some stations someplace.
More stops.
Any questions of the county police? It's a good report, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. This is where we're gonna break away from the agenda. We know that we're gonna go strictly to finance for this last session. And one thing we'd like to know is within the last couple of months, there have been a couple of meetings with the county council. One dealing with the overfund of 7 million, and the other one, you said you had a meeting after this past month with one of the county councilors. Could you give us a break of those meetings? We don't get information from them, so that's
Right.
what I'm asking.
So that's right. So the county council has requested us to start what are called CDL meetings, and that is a council designated liaison. Councilwoman Shalonda Webb is our designated liaison. We've worked with her over the years many times. We meet essentially on practically a one-on-one basis. We have had 2 of those meetings. Our last one was just last week on the 7th. We are doing a drill down on our budget, very similar to this. Councilwoman Webb actually asked me to provide her with a link to this meeting so she could pop in if possible, just to listen in and see how this was going. So I noted, thank you, Izzy. And our next meeting is actually on the 21st. And the purpose is, the councilwoman attends along with the council's budget director, Chris Brown Howard. And the effort is to try to be sure that we are ramped up and ready to put the budget in as soon as possible so that we do it in time this year. Those meetings have been extremely productive. And I'm sorry, this is Tammy Paris to my right, who's my CFO, and Kevin Scott, Director of Security and Public Affairs. So just to be sure everybody knows who everybody is. The CDL meetings have been attended by myself and Tammy every single time. We did just take Ron Forrest at the last meeting. Ron really specifically gave Councilwoman Webb some briefing when it came to routes. Obviously, I'm not a specialist about the routing and so on, but I do know our budget, not as well as Tammy. But I know that pretty well. We have drilled down on that and have had very, very productive discussions. One of the things that I have asked to do from the CDL meeting is get authorization to draft legislation, which I was hoping I'd get authorization to bring to this meeting so that you all could see what the legislation would be and vote on it for our appropriation of this year. I texted and we didn't quite have that in place yet. So I am working on it and I'm trying to just coordinate all of those pieces, Chairman. But I do think that the meeting has been very productive and good drill downs and discussions about transit and our budget and where our budget growth is. Are there any questions specifically about it?
Because mine, one I have, okay.
I just had a question as to whether or not the legislation that was being prepared is being prepared to, by the council to accept your budget as currently fixed?
Yes, so it is as being presented to you. And what we want to, so that there's several different taxing pieces to the legislation. That is the county's decision about how that goes, where the individual piece goes, and that's been the subject of debate. What we are trying to do is to be sure that we are presenting a budget number and that we just get our budget approved. The individual, how the, for instance, funding through the different individual taxing entities is an internal and negotiated function, and also is the fiat of the political jurisdiction of the county itself. Obviously not Talby, not Tammy, or Kevin. The idea, now we will support any of those. We will, if we're asked to comment on those, we will do that. We will, my job is to be as professional as possible, being sure that we are putting in front of you what is the funding associated with getting as much service to the citizens of St. Louis County as possible. We're trying to be sure that we're being as professional as concerned and not, taking a political initiative of which we do not have that weight. I hope that makes sense to you. Okay.
Definitely.
So obviously, so what we had just suggested is that, it would make it smoother if I had an idea of a draft idea that the council might, or through the CDL process, and that I could bring to this commission to consider, right? Obviously, this commission makes its own recommendation within that. That's your purview, your vote on what that recommendation is. I would suggest that, if Chairman, if you don't mind, okay, what I would suggest is within this budget presentation, what may make sense if someone were to make a motion to accept our budget as the appropriated number as we will present. And then authorize us to prepare a draft legislation or something, then we can move to that next step. We just want to be sure that we are not making the budgetary and political decisions that are in the county's purview. That'll get me into trouble. So I'm kind of making a delicate dance here, and trying to be respectful of the political authorities that I work with.
I see.
Step goes the maze hill on that.
That's fair.
They ain't too many words for something simple, but I'm trying.
Like the eggshell.
Uh-huh.
Okay, with that, thanks for this. If we can just basically, since you do meet monthly, I guess, with the CLE,
CDL.
CDL, okay,
Uh-huh.
all right, yeah, that makes sense. And if we can just get basically a monthly report on that, it will basically give us a hint on where the council lies and going forward. And also, when we get to these types of meetings, I'm not gonna say minds are made up, but we will have a good roadmap to work off of. So if we can get those, we appreciate it in the future.
I think the roadmap is a great idea. I didn't get the impression that mine was made up or that we didn't, what we were going through, it was a very positive exchange. I didn't have any objections.
Mhm.
I was just trying to hustle to try to get something in front of this commission and really just do my job.
Right.
I just didn't get that authorization yet. We have another meeting on the 21st. Okay, that'll be actually held in this room at the same kind of time, and I'm happy to let you all know how it went, and if there was any specific questions and so on. As of our last meeting, you had asked us to distribute to the commission, for instance, the questions that were asked from the council so that you all could see. We distributed those along with the big book, budget book. And then, of course, we have at the request of the commission, we have a simplified book, which is in front of you now, which was also sent. We have a lot of information. What our job is to try to boil that down so that we're being as transparent and thorough as possible, but also respectful of the time of a volunteer commission. So I think I like to think we're doing a pretty good job of it, but I'm happy to answer any questions and provide information.
If anyone have a question right now, hopefully we'll have some at the end of the presentation, but right now, do you have any questions, Mr. Roach? Okay.
Mr. Chair,
All right, so I'm just going to start very briefly. So what we produced in this was the request of the commission was to boil what is a bigger budget book down to something that was specifically catered to just transit. As you may remember, Bi-State Development runs several different entities that are outside of the budget consideration of this commission. For instance, the Arch, the Freightway, some other business units that we happen to run. And of course, we have to do a consolidated budget for that we will pass. Within there is this transit budget, which is the one we asked for the appropriation. And so to try to simplify this, what our effort here is to ensure that we are addressing the questions that you ask and address them directly. That still doesn't mean we don't have a very complex budget. It still is complicated. And so with that, I'm going to hand you over to Tammy Paris, my CFO.
Good afternoon. So, as Toby said, we tried to simplify it. It is complicated. So I thought we'd just start on page 1. And this page is really the bulk of what I would normally do when I presented in the past with you. And so the advantage of this book is that it really gives you a couple different things, so actually 3. So it gives you the actuals for 2025, and I just want to point that out. So if you look, you'll see that we had 9.4 million. So, talking about the 7 million, we had some other issues, that we needed to resolve in 25, but I think it lets you kind of see where we were coming from. And then it also gives you a comparison of 26 to 27 on budgets. And so I'm just gonna kind of walk through this, but what I really was hoping this afternoon is that, that you guys would ask questions. And I want to be here to answer the questions, and if I don't have all the detail that you need today with me, that we will provide that information for you. So looking at this first section, you can see that that's passenger revenue. And just looking, you can see a little bit more detail on the sheet. So you see bus and rail, and you see Polaride, and you see in 2026, we budgeted 19.6 million. And we're being very optimistic in 2027. We're budgeting almost 23.2 million. What we've seen so far from SPP, which is the Secure Platform Project, is about $1 million in revenue, in additional revenue for passengers. So that is a good sign. So I'm projecting that 23.2. We are moving the SPP project along, and so we think we'll get the benefits of that in budget year 2027. If you look a little bit further down, you're going to see that there's a couple of other items, paratransit contracts, which really is Medicaid type contracts that we have that we get, not overly substantial, but there is some revenue, almost $1 million there. And then other operating revenue, you'll see that is $3,191,175. That revenue comes in from other sources, so advertising, rentals that we have an ATS maintenance program with St. Clair County, so we get paid revenue for or money for the repairs that we do for their operation, which is similar to Polaride. And then we have, and that's primarily the bulk of that line item. So in total, what you'll see there is total operating revenue of about 27.3 million for 27. Moving down into not operating revenue, so that would be our sales tax, which is the appropriation that we ask for both the city and the county, our St. Clair County contracts, and then there is some FTA or federal money within this line item, as well as some state money. That line item you'll see is $318 million. And I just want to bring note that page 2, so the next page, actually gives you a breakdown of that 318 million. So if you look at that blue column, you'll see that that breakdown is again broken down here on this sheet. So you can get some more detail there, and I'm happy to answer questions. But again, it's the sales tax, mainly the St. Clair County contract. You'll see another big number of vehicle maintenance, and that's the federal money that I was talking about for about 16 million. So in total, what that gives us, we have some investment income, the next line. So that 5.2 million that we're projecting, that is really interest income on the money that we have for capital projects. And then there's some pass-through grants is the other number that you'll see. That's almost $1 million, that 989,000. So total revenues that we're budgeting for FY27 is $351,537,833. The primary increase in that is about a 1.5% increase that we're showing for sales tax, and also for St. Clair County. So then moving down into operating expenses, you'll see our total wages and benefits. The projection there is 208 million. And you'll see that that's a reduction from the prior year. So a lot happened at Bi-State as far as position. We looked at different things. We're always looking for vacancies. So if you note, in the past, we talked about Talby's favorite slide, which I don't have with me today, but it's been with us for 8 years. What this means is that we manage our operating expenses. Okay, so our goal is 1.5% growth. That's less than inflation, which is about 2.4%. And so our average for the last 8 years was 1.62%. So we are really close to meeting that goal. Some years we've done better. Some years we've seen increases when you look at a year by year differential. But what you'll note in those years where we see increases, it's primarily due to our negotiations on our union contracts. So those are the years we see the spikes. So looking at this a little bit further, we can look at services. So you'll see not much change there at 62 million. So increased about $1 million. So what that really is reflective of is wage increases. So a lot of times on our contracts, we're paying their increased wages too. And so we're seeing some variance there. And we do, again, we try to manage every single line item here by looking for efficiency. So we do where we can. The next line item you'll see is really fuel and slight increase there of about 750,000 from the prior year. So we have a fuel hedge. We don't get in the business to make money. We're basically in there to manage our budget. So by having a fuel hedge, what it does is it gives us 18 months to buy ahead in the market, by contracts, and it helps us manage the fluctuations that we might see. So right now in that fuel hedge, because fuel is so high, we're not making any purchases. So we are kind of holding, but we're 18 months into the future right now. So we believe we're going to be okay, but it's just going to depend on what happens in the next few months in the year. The next line item, parts and supplies, you'll see that that's almost 25.9 million, and you'll see that's an increase of 2.9 million. So what we have done there is in the last couple of years, we've really pushed on our maintenance team on parts and tried to get them to help us find savings there. So when we can't find efficiencies, we push in different areas, and they've been able to come through for us. But this year we need to help them out. We're actually running over budget in 26 currently. And in 27, we're giving them money back so that they can do what they need to do. We appreciate their help in the prior years. Looking at casualty and liability, you'll see that that number is about 12.2 million, so up 1.2. So casualty and liability, we do have an excess liability, that we pay like in excess of a certain amount that we get insurance for, but otherwise we're self-insured. So what you're really seeing in this year, that $2 million increase is primarily due to incidences that we've incurred. Or that we're expecting to have to pay out in that year. Looking at utilities, you can see just a slight jump there of about 300,000. Most of that, I just looked again, is primarily related to electricity propulsion on the MetroMaine system. And then looking at other operating expenses, so you'll see that we have quite an increase there of 1.6 million, and that's inclusive of things like taxes, dues, travel, training. So in the prior couple of years, we've really pushed in those areas too. So we cut training, other than for operators primarily. We have cut travel as much as possible. And we had absolute necessities have we done that. So that helped us maintain our growth rate. And then finally, management fees. So this is really just an administrative cost or expense that we have on our books that we do different things where we get, and in this case, it's not so much related to transit, but we, with the arch, as we mentioned, there's different things that we earn. So with the National Park Service, I'll just give them as an example. We are a managing partner. We don't own and operate it. We work with the National Park Service, and we earn fees for doing that. And so our total operating expenses for the year is almost 339 million, so up 1.5%. So we are controlling those expenses, managing those costs. Going down into non-operating expense, you'll see our capital leases. So you'll see that there's nothing there. So we've actually, that is no longer a line item for us. Those have been terminated at this point. The interest expense, that's on our debt and our bonds that we have. So you see a reduction of about $790,000. And that is due to the refunding that we've done in previous years. So we're getting some benefit. We try to spread that benefit over the life of those bonds. And then looking at the next line item, sheltered workshops. So you can see we lowered that. We're really just trailing that number up of what we give. What sheltered workshops are is that we really, we get about 2% of our sales tax money that we get on the 73 tax. It goes to productive living in St. Louis County. And we have a really good working relationship with them, and they are okay with the budget numbers. The other miscellaneous non-operating expense, again, this is just an in and out. This is our pass-through grants. So in total, you see our total expenses for the year are $353 million, and we do have a slight loss of 1.5. Some of that is non-cash related in a sense that it relates to some things that we have to do for accounting purposes related to our leases and things. So any deficit that you see here, we know that we can fund it otherwise. So we're not asking for those dollars. Looking at depreciation, I don't often talk about depreciation too much, but you can see that it's quite a jump at $4.7 million from the prior year. 80% of what we have in transit is covered by the FTA. The other 20% is a local match. So, but what you're seeing this increase, it has to do with some of the LEVs that we are projecting to maybe have maybe a few in service in 27. But primarily it's due to the Mid-America extension over in St. Clair County. And then finally, net transfers, you'll see that number is 6.8 million. And so that is primarily related to our self-insurance costs. And finally, a deficit of 95.5 million. But like I said, most of that is related to depreciation and it's a non-cash item. And I'm happy to answer. I know that's a lot of information, but I'm happy to answer questions.
I wanted to add to the commission, if you don't mind, excuse me.
Sure, sure.
But in this book, we also included the narrative section that talks about analysis, right? And there, what we tried to do was a brief little verbal focus on the why on a lot of individual categories. And I'd bring you just very quickly to page 18, if you don't mind. If you notice on expenses, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 categories, really. And those 7 categories is really what we do. If we're able to save money, it's going to be in one of these 7 categories. The dominant category is in wages and benefits. Wages and benefits really controls our budget, 68% of our budget. We are what our frontline employees are. And as you know, we were short of service really essentially 2 years ago, 3 years ago, when we had the labor shortage. So we made some investments in that frontline workforce. So we've actually been increasing that workforce, but cutting down in our executive workforce. And I brought the actually ATU already negotiated rates down for the past 6 years. I'm just going to read them very quickly. 2.25, 3%, 3% in 22, 5% in 23, 3% in 24, 3%. And what that means is we have been shifting our investments in our frontline workforce. When we have been short workers, that made sense. We needed to do it from a market standpoint. And now we are at roughly full employment as far as our frontline operators are concerned. So that's just a very important and primary conduit to figuring out how we deliver the best service to the citizens of St. Louis County. But I did just want to bring that narrative. I think it's very good and helps explain rather than just the sheet about what it is, the service that we do, and the decisions you try to make. But happy to, and of course, we want to try to be brief and spend some time on questions. And thank you so much for your time. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Any questions?
This question is, I will recognize my question is semi-unfair. I should have given you time to give me an answer. Has Bi-State ever seen, at least in your time, 8 years, a year-to-year increase of $3.3 million or 18.4%? That is a pretty aggressive increase.
So where are you seeing that figures?
In fares, after revenue.
Actually, so in my past, yes, not in this time period because he started right before COVID. So back in 2015, 16, those years, we had some pretty high passenger revenue numbers. So we would project more. If you're asking me if I'm taking this 15, yes, to some extent. But if I hadn't already seen the increase by opening 11 stations and seeing $1 million increase, I wouldn't have increased it.
So I like SPP. I think it's the coolest thing ever. Huge fan. That is a pretty sizable increase. And like I read page 16, it says this is not a fare increase. I know you can't raise a fare overnight. You have outlined the process in the past. It takes some effort. Plus you have 3 people buy in. I mean, that is a pretty big. With that being said, I understand passenger fare income is not a majority of your funding.
Right.
With that being said, not your purview, but I worry if you project a fare increase of that amount and then it doesn't deliver. how some people might react. I mean, I'm here because I support transit. I imagine a lot of other people are the same, but I hope you're right. That would be the greatest thing ever. I
So-
think 18% increase would be awesome.
So, so I'm always balancing that. Okay, we're always in a situation, and it happens every day where I work, and we deal in millions of dollars. So, so what happens is, to hedge on that, what we will do is if we have any positions that we're hiring for, we'll push them out. Okay, so we'll make adjustments as we go to make sure that that does not become an issue. So we don't come back and ask for money. We don't do that. Now, it might seem like we did last year with the $7 million, but that was an appropriate amount for sales tax just to come in. It was not because we didn't make our budget. So I always am fluxing between these line items, trying to figure out expenses and how can we figure out different ways. And I will tell you, it's getting harder and harder because things are more expensive, and I do struggle trying to find those ways to do that. But I am comfortable with the projection that we have. I just know I may have to get creative about how I can do it if it doesn't come in. It is a risk.
Patrick, it's a strong question. Thanks for looking at the detail. But it is an SPP, much to our pleasant surprise, when we piloted the original stations that Kevin did with manning them, like the fare revenue side won't be ready until the end of June. But when we did the manning, we did it at specific stations, and quite frankly, we were a little concerned internally. We thought maybe even revenue would go down in those stations, and the opposite has happened. I would have predicted the other way, I'll be honest with you. But I think what that is telling us is that there is some inherent fare evasion that was unaccounted for, simply a fact. I have no other explanation. And that our customers are also inherently more comfortable with the safety of their ride. I mean, they like seeing the gates, the activity, the uniforms. And so I think, again, and thank you for recognizing that, I think our product is stronger. So we have been very aggressive about it. It is also true that we have gotten public comments, especially from the county council, about potentially raising our fares. And I did go through pretty lengthy explanation that would take some time. We also think for marketing, it makes sense that we complete SPP first, right? Before we get to looking at a reasonable fare increase. We haven't had a fare increase since I think it's 2014, which really is not okay. Across the industry, we've seen modest raises in other areas of the country, and we think that we'll have the opportunity to do that. We will have to take those fare structures in front of our funders. So this very commission, and we'll review those. That's one of the taskings through FTA, and we'll be happy to do that.
Piggyback, we look at, whenever we say fare increases or
Yeah.
ridership, what about buses? Have we did anything on that to see if that's the same, if it's lower or higher on the revenue for buses?
Yeah, bus revenue is very strong, and it continues to go up. We have a unified system, although we do, since we have the capability to separate it, really a good 70% of our ridership actually is bus-based, although Metrolink gets a lot of the notoriety. It is a huge driver in popularity on our self-taxing initiative. That's very, very important, because remember, on our self-taxing initiatives, use St. Louis County as an example. I have to get people who don't ride our system to say, you know what, but I still understand that it's valuable and I'm going to vote for it, right? So folks who maybe, go to the grocery store and see, hey, it's my checker, and the people who stock these shelves and so on, they're coming on Metrolink or they're coming on Metrobus. And therefore, I think it's valuable to the overall general public. So there's no way I can get all of the public onto my system, but we can understand it as a public asset. And so, and my point is that Metrolink and its image consistent with St. Louis City and County has been very successful at garnering that general public support. So it's an important element to a unified system.
I just on that point,
Yeah,
I think if you actually achieve an 18.4% increase, marketing that to the public before a fair increase,
great idea.
if that happened,
Yeah,
that's what I'm saying, that's what I meant in terms
for
of,
sure.
if you actually get an 18.4% increase. I'm from Oakville. I know my county council district's awesome, man. I know you hear a lot from Metro. It's awesome. But like I know what people around me think about transit. And I tell people all the time, I'm like, I ride the bus from Chicago, it's great. I ride the train in DC, New York, same thing. We have the
Yeah.
same things here. My neighbors will never step foot on a bus. That's fine. But if you were to achieve that, I can go to people in Oakville and say, they have SPP, you've never heard of it, you say you feel unsafe, now it's safe, now they have tap to pay, all this other cool stuff, and you have an 18.4% increase. Here's your goodwill. I know where the no voters probably are.
Yeah.
But, I'm excited by that. That would be great.
Strong point. Thank you.
Any additional questions at this time? Comments?
Tammy, what is the 2 million reduction in wages and benefits? What is the head count on that? Or is that a certain department or what does that look like?
So it's actually a lot of different things, because, we did make some adjustments both to security and to, marketing. And so, it's not, just headcount though, because those changes were then offset by medical, so we're self-insured, so we have, we're seeing a lot of, increase, which most people are related to the pharmaceutical side of the medical piece of it, and they call them.
GLP-1.
Yes, sorry.
They're killing me.
Manjaro.
Yeah. Well, they're killing us, but they're making our employees healthier.
Retirement's gonna look better.
Yeah.
Exactly. It's a tough
So
public
it's
policy.
offset by that. So
Okay.
any reduction we had on positions has probably been offset now by the expenses related to. And, our, so there's other benefits within there too. So we've seen some other increases, like workers' comp sits in there, so there's been a little bit of an increase there. So it's just a lot of moving parts, but that is the majority of it.
So just to speak specifically about a couple of those pieces, Kim, one of the things that we did, we reduced our marketing staff and merged them into a public affairs and security staff. Kevin heads that group, which I think has been very, very effective, but also more efficient. On the flip side, as we mentioned, the GLP-1s hit us really tough. That is a $6 million hit to our budget. Okay, now, on the other hand, I will tell you, I have been struggling to get our workforce is largely African American, right? That's simply a fact. And we have been struggling to reach our workforce and health and outcomes associated with diabetes and obesity for years. We have extensive health programs and so on. The balance to the GLP-1s and that $6 million is making our workforce discernibly healthier. So we are hopeful that in 2 and 3 years, when these health benefits start showing up, because we'll have a healthier workforce, we'll get less absenteeism and so on, that they will start to come through. But it's a seeded investment that we're hoping to see. I am not a medical professional, but that's what everybody is telling me. In the meantime, and we did bring it up with my board of commissioners, we're kind of looking at a moral policy issue. Our workforce, as I just noted, is 68% of our budget. They are our product, really. I send bus operators out who are operating a 40-foot Gillig bus that's worth about $550,000, and they're driving it everywhere and driving it safely and moving people. So those investments are very important to us, but sometimes they do hit our budget. That's accurate.
Everyone has the same problem with GLPs.
We've been told that it's probably a 5-year, return on investment, and I think we've been doing this.
Yeah, we really have about 18 months realistically under our belt with an authorized expenditure on GLP-1s.
Any other questions? None to be heard. Okay, that's good.
Oh, I'm sorry, I do have one more. And we talked about it a little bit on the last call, but just with the demand for call rides and the increase in the 6% to 8% growth in ridership increases that we're seeing, under wages and benefits, is there an increase for operators included in this? I know the number's down and you've taken it from security and marketing, but are we accounting for this ever increasing demand for call ride and others, so the operator base can grow to meet the demand?
So we did increase the follow ride operators by 20. So we are at 201. Now that was a pre-COVID number. So we were having issues getting operators, as you guys know. And so we have gotten back to pre-COVID on the call ride side. Right now, the projection is the same for operators, but we are, what we've been experimenting with is some part-time operators. So that works good for both the operator and for the company as far as costs. And we've just been starting to do that. Ron's been working on that. So I think that will be good for us in this current budget year. Or 27.
I have a really simple question. How does call ride generate revenue?
So they have, I mean, they get pairs too.
Okay, they do
so-
both pairs.
Yeah.
They do, but it is per ride the most expensive service by far. We have been deploying it. One of the problems with transit across the United States is the better you make paratransit service, the more it increases ridership. You would think that eventually you'd reach market saturation and it would go down. We have found the opposite. There seems to be, the more service we do, the more ridership requests that we fulfill. So we have had great success in that we've moved when we were having some troubles with operators from 5,000 rides a week, and we're right now peaking at close to 8,000 a week, a really extraordinary increase. One of the ways that we have been taking some of that off the top is using our VIA contract in St. Louis County only, and that is to take some paratransit customers who are ambulatory, for instance, who, can, maybe vision impaired or may have an issue with temperature. It allows us to use some of the on-demand transit models, trying to be more creative for us to try to handle that compression. Bad part of that is that is very nice service and people like it. So then our service increases. So it is a very tough conundrum. One of the things that we try to do is move as many people onto regular transit service as possible. All of our buses are handicap accessible, et cetera. All of our trains are, obviously, and that'll continue.
It would normally, yes.
Would really help us if St. Louis County, however, had more sidewalks.
Ain't nobody got video but me.
St. Louis County,
Otherwise he would have named.
St. Louis County is a big challenge for paratransit. We just talked to Councilwoman Webb about this because most of the stops don't have sidewalks and are not handicap accessible. Therefore, everybody in that area potentially can qualify for paratransit, which drives our paratransit up and makes it very difficult for us to run service, because if, let's say, a stop sign is in grass, it's real tough for people to get to. Now, the communities like in the Spanish Lake and so on have asked for these kind of amenities. They are not cheap, but they are a great way to build communities, but does create some burden for us as far as figuring out what do we do in these areas.
When you go to the community and you want an ADA appliance stop, right now, a lot of them just fall on the grass.
Right.
Is there a way that you can partner with that municipality to look at the improvements? Say, okay, we can do this and you can do this and we can get it. Is there a way that we can partnership with these communities? I know it's going to be, that's a harder sell probably than getting the fare increase, but that's a way to make sure that we get safer bus stops and get the poles out of the ground. I mean, this is, you see some of them where they're just standing in the middle. And I think that what you just said is just discourage people from doing it. And if they don't have a stop in their facility, they don't automatically apply for Colorado. I think.
No, it is, there, you have to be within 3/4 of a mile of an established bus or train route.
Right.
What is the federal catchment area? And then there's time, restraints as well. But it's a very good question. It is about building really transportation, within our communities. I do think that there could be a policy initiative by St. Louis County. Proposition A, capital funds would be a qualified, as would be the 1973 tax for infrastructure associated with sidewalks. We have proposed that maybe if there was a small sinking pool of that funding, that could be established in the county, that for instance, the county could use to tap if there was a sidewalk project where, for instance, your transportation department could offer, if they were in Spanish Lake, and say, we could go, we have this small sinking fund for sidewalk improvements to bus stops, and we could match that with this fund specifically. I think it'd be, the transportation department in St. Louis County has always worked with us on routing and so on, trying to figure out sidewalks. We worked on these kind of issues before. A lot of times, it's not a budgetary issue. And I would just make a suggestion that as just a policy that I think would work for everyone, that might be one to consider.
There's a question from.
Ron, you had a question?
Yeah, I was going to make a comment, but Talby just kind of touched on it. We do work with county departments and identify how we can make their bus stops accessible. We need to do more of that, and we will. But it's not only about making the bus stop location accessible. Talby talked about sidewalks. So that first and last mile from someone's home to the bus stop location, that also needs to be accessible. So that pedestrian access from home to that bus stop is something that we need to improve. And we discussed this at the steering committee meeting for the Spanish Lake, and everybody, for the most part, understood that it is not just about bus stops and making those ADA compliant, but it's about that first and last mile. And I also mentioned this to Councilwoman Webb the other day. So we need to keep that in mind when we're talking about accessibility.
Right, we always hear the good numbers of the numbers increasing on Colorado. At the next meeting or one of the future meetings, can you provide us with basically an overview of what is the approval structure? And like you said, at last mile, it sounds like it should be within a formal guideline and stuff. So if you can provide that to us at the next or future meeting, we appreciate it.
I can do that. Now, the first and last mile isn't a requirement, but the stop location, the bus stop location has to be ADA compliant, at least for us to dedicate funds to. But just for the purpose of planning communities and community development, we can't get people to those bus stops, even if they're ADA compliant, without sidewalks, without pedestrian access. So I think when we're having these conversations, that key part of the conversation gets we miss out on that part. But yeah.
If you can just come back with us and give us more of an overview, not only of the increase in ridership, but what prompted the increase. And Mr. Rhodes said it earlier, that is the inability to have regular bus stops. in the county. What can we do to basically address those issues? So,
Okay.
next couple of meetings, we would like to hear some.
We'll work on that, John.
Okay, thank you.
So quick question with kind of circling around this. So this current ask is for an operating budget that holds the service profile the same, correct?
Does.
But we've heard from the county council members about wanting additional service, maybe in North County, and now we've heard about needing additional bus stop amenities. So if those were desired by, the commission probably supports all of those activities because that's our role, right? We want to make sure that we see transit successful in St. Louis County. So how, as a commission or the county council, do we make that in this budget ask to ensure that it's covered?
Yeah, and whose responsibility, right? Because there's a lot of different folks who have, that's within their purview. So are we asking, right? Like, that was the question that I had too, was like, what is then our role in ensuring that all of the pieces that connect for folks to have more accessibility to public transportation are covered? Because it's not just within the purview of the work that we're approving.
It isn't, so technically correct. What we are asking for, and I would ask respectfully of this commission to pass our budget request of $203 million and then authorize for preparation of legislation, and a motion and vote to that would be great, because then I could get moving. On the other issues, correct, one of the things that the North County and Shalonda Webb has asked for specifically was an analysis of a bus route, the number 71, that we eliminated for low ridership and replaced it with via essentially on-demand service. It's a very interesting conundrum because the existing ridership of the number 71 was very low and down at 254 a day. And we've had stronger ridership from on-demand. So you got to kind of look at how these things work. Yet the community is, in Spanish Lake specifically, is very concerned about the number 71. So we have proposed a modified number 71 that would include some additional service to service Wild Care Park, because that now is a huge asset coming online and one that we very much need to have service to. Mm-hmm. If you look at the service component of the existing zoo, almost 60% of zoo customers are from zip codes that are outside of our area. So they typically drive and so on. However, the people who really use transit are the workers. Mm-hmm. So the folks who are selling slushies, mm-hmm. et cetera. We have a lot of those mm-hmm. who are taking Metrolink to the zoo right now. We work hand in glove with the zoo folks. And I have suggested at a meeting for Wild Care Park that a shuttle service for 4 months out of the year. Remember, very few people are going to Wild Care Park in January here. I mean, that's just how it is. They are projecting almost 450,000 visitors there, but they'll be really probably in 4 months out of the year, maybe 5. So figuring out how we have that service. At our last CDL meeting, we talked about this, but it depends on when the park opens. And it is going to open in calendar year sometime around 27. So maybe likely the last month of this fiscal year is what we talked about. And then we would probably add to that budget. That is one of those things where we would look at the budget and try to see if we could just figure it out, come into this commission and to St. Louis County and say, we're going to add in fiscal year 28, which would be partially and obviously the calendar year, and we would be able to make that happen. So it's a difficult nuance. But of course, we'd negotiate what that now. Of course, I could always go to the county and they could say, do it no matter what. And I'd say, okay. we're gonna have to pass a resolution and get extra service. But that's not what they've asked for to date.
And, what you said,
Yes.
we've been trying over the years to get those questions addressed.
Mhm.
Our charge is here to approve a $203 million total requested budget. In order to get the issues addressed that you wanted, that's up to the county council and the county executive.
Mhm.
In the last couple of years, the recommendations that we made, and the recommendation is basically how to split their budget amount. We have been, the original 1973 half-cents tax was to go 100% transportation. That is the amount that's basically being split between transportation, public transportation, and public works. Then they passed a Prop M that would basically cover any overruns from the 73 half-cents tax. Then you had a Prop A that will basically cover additional overruns. Our issue here is that the recommendation that we make to the county council is not only we approve what their budget dollars are, but for them to review and approve whatever our split is. Last year, we asked for a 50-50% split. 50 transportation, 50 public works. When it went to the county executive and came to the county council, that 50% that we were asking for was cut to 32%. Hopefully, we can approve to get a resolution for the total budget amount, because that amount is not going to change. If we agree with their numbers here, regardless of how we want it to be split, that amount is not going to be changed. What's going to be changed is the split or the recommended amount that goes to public transportation and public works. Like I said, when this half-cents first started, the public voted 100% transportation. Then they knew that there was going to be some shortfalls, so that's when they did M. Our charge is basically, what do we think is a fair amount of this budget that should go to transportation? You know, everybody got some deep feelings about transportation, and we even heard, in order to have good buses, you got to have good roads. In order to have good roads, you got to have good sidewalks and get everything else. But what we have to do is, in our mind, say, what do we want this split to be between public transportation and public works? We have no control, zero control of what the final numbers are when it comes out of county council. Kim?
But question on that, we don't have any control, but we're the Public Transit Commission and we have a role to advocate for public transit in St. Louis County. So to Reese's point, if we support a 50-50 split out of the 73 tax, that leaves more for the Prop A account to be used to potentially increase service and meet those amenities that riders are asking for. So I think that we could include a letter maybe from the commission that this is why we voted for this split, because we understand that there's an increased demand for Polaride, an increased demand for service in North County, and an increased demand for bus stop amenities. And by allowing 50-50 between the roads department and transit, you now have some flexible money there that could potentially be used for that.
Because the cost is going to continue to rise. You know, we're trying to contain costs, and we're doing magic to try to make all the numbers work, because there's not an additional ask. And so if we know that, if we can anticipate that that's gonna happen, it makes sense to me that we should do something about it.
Well, I think both made very good points, and I think the main thing is, let's work on a letter to the council and put our issue of 50% for transit. We gotta have it. I mean, right now, he mentioned a couple times last meeting, Mr. Oak, that they make their budget, and they do. But by making their budget is basically depleting our funds in Prop A, which is supposedly be used for expansion, either Metrolink expansion or bus service or transit service expansion. We have had, or we have seen a letter, I think it was in the newspaper, and any of light rail expansion into North County is on hold for right now. Don't know how it happened, but it's on hold. But if there is a desire push to not include transit or mass transit in North County, there's still obligation to do bus stops, ADA appliance. The money is sitting there. And I think one of the things I'm asking of the county council is to give, yeah, you raise your hand now. You should have said, I'm here. Is to basically give us an accounting of Prop A. We know that it's sitting there, and good part about it, the only person that could use it is transit. The bad part about it is that the county is the only one who can authorize that.
Chairman, can I point out that Councilwoman Webb has raised her hand and has joined us?
Yeah, sorry I didn't recognize you. Go ahead, Councilwoman.
Good afternoon, everybody, and I do apologize for joining your meeting late. I had a closed session that I just got out of, but I hear some of the conversation, and I just wanted to be clear that we are in favor of public transportation, me specifically supporting and champion for North County. You all know our budget woes. We understand. I heard someone say, well, somebody said in order to have good public transit, you got to have good roads and good sidewalks. And the only reason that comes into conversation is because the public transit lines that were taken from North County during COVID has not returned. Even though we piloted the VIA system, it still did return some lines. Now, I just had a meeting with Talby and Mr. Ronnie and Tammy this week as we talked about different options, but all of those options come with an increased price because the funds that were left from those 3 lines being terminated have been moved on for other activities, whether that's VIA or whatever else. But it still leaves us with this challenge of how to properly fund the needs for public transportation and balancing the needs of the community. And so I wanted to hear this conversation today so I can have all perspectives. And then when you make the decision, I want to be able to be a partner in this decision. Not that, well, the bad thing is it's the council's decision. This council is wanting to do what's best for the community, but what's best that we can afford. And lastly, when we talk about Prop A, historically, even before I became a member of this council, Prop A was to invest in its future. And that future was to extend, from my understanding, to extend Metrolink to North County. That was from the 90s before I even moved to St. Louis. And yet today that has not come to fruition. Whatever the means and reasons why, it hasn't. And so continued investment for long-term vision is being put up against a short-time tactical need. How do you balance that and still be responsible to the community needs and providing a good metro system? And so all of these things determine whether or not St. Louis will grow as a community, as a county, or will it continue to stagnate and decline? And so I'm taking all this in as we try to make informed decisions. And happy to hear about the 50-50 split. That may not be what we can actually afford at this time. And I just want to be transparent up front about all of these options as we come to making your budget decisions for July. Thank you.
Thank you. We just joined in the meeting by Councilwoman Days. Welcome. Chair, do you have any comments that you'd like to?
At this time, just to observe, I think Council we have articulated much of my concerns for this particular meeting, so I'm good. Thank you.
Well, heard the budget presentation. We heard the amounts that they are requesting in the budget. Again, what's not in there is the 50-50 split that we talked about and Councilwoman Wood talked about. But I think our main charge here is to say, are we much less comfortable? Can we approve their budget, the by-state budget of $203 million?
So question for clarification, if we approve the amount, do we then vote on the resolution of the splits at the next meeting?
Yes, we will. Yes.
That's fine.
Okay. I thought she had her hand up again.
No, sorry.
I guess at this time, do we have any questions or do we have a motion to approve by state budget of $203 million? That we approve the budget to basically authorize by state to create a resolution that we can include the split that this council would like between transportation and public works.
So moved.
Second.
And move, we have a second. Do we have a second? Oh,
Second.
yes,
Yeah.
let's do a roll call, please.
Can I, I'm sorry. for
Sure, any
clarification.
questions? I'm sorry.
For clarification, the budget appropriation is actually 203.1. So I just,
Let the motion reflect it's 203.1.
thank you.
Further
As a-
discussion, please, if I may.
Yes, ma'am.
This is what you are proposing
Proposal.
as a budget. I just want to make sure that that's.
Yeah.
Yes.
This is a proposal that you're
Right.
making.
The commission's proposal to the council.
Right. Okay, and does your second stand?
It does.
Okay, roll call vote.
Deborah Carter,
Yes.
Kim Sella,
Yes.
James Goddard,
Yes.
Ed James,
Yes.
Bryce Rollins,
Yes.
Ben Samuels,
Yes.
Jordan Sanders, who had to leave early,
Jordan had to leave early.
James Neely,
Yes.
Patrick McKelvey.
Yes.
Unanimous, we do have a request for the budget that will go to the county. You prepared a resolution. We will discuss the split between transportation and public works. Vote on that for next meeting.
Yes, Chairman, we'll do it.
All right, any other questions, any other business before this council at this time? Okay, our next meeting is June.
Yes.
I love you, only.
June the 8th. June the 8th. At 4 o'clock. Right now, we're gonna flip for it and we will let you know if it be public or Zoom.
Okay.
It'll probably be Teams. So if you get a weird email from me, so
Be on what?
Teams.
Oh.
Don't worry, I'll walk you through it.
Oh, you mean, it didn't want to get on?
Yeah.
It will be public.
Yeah.
Do I have a motion for adjournment?
So moved.
Second.
Move properly second. All those in favor? Opposed? Ayes have it. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
All right.